It's time to make a 3D door and a felt bunny for our Hoppin' Down the Bunny Trail bench pillow. The mushroom home block is ready to go, but there's one thing I need to do before I can start the block. There is a 3D door that needs to be made in a different hooping prior to starting the mushroom home. So I will go back to the embroidery files and I will drag and drop this little 3D door into the hoop. Now this will be using wash away stabilizer, and there is another bunny that I need to also make for a block later in the quilt, but it's made using wash away stabilizer as well. So I'm going to make these two at the same time to help save on stabilizer. So I will take this little bunny and I will drag and drop that into the hoop. Now these in the directions call for a 4x4 hoop, and that would be doing these little files separately. And I think I can get them both into a 5x7. So I will come up to this preferences folder and I'm going to choose my 5x7 hoop and see if they will both fit. And they do. So I will just move them into the hoop and that should work well. I will put the wash away stabilizer, and again that helps me save on stabilizer. So let's do a few changes to these files. Now, because I'm working in the same hoop, I could choose to color sort so I could have, for example, both of the placement lines for the bunny and the door run together, both the tack down, and kind of condense the steps. But I am not going to worry about that, and mostly because I would need to change a lot of these colors before color sorting. The blue and the orange would be fine for, again, the placement and the tack down. But if you look in these files, there are more blue and orange default throughout the file for both. And so I would have to go change all of those so that all of those colors don't color sort or merge together. And that's just not the time I want to take when I have these two little designs I need to stitch out. If I look at the stitch simulator, it will run the door and I will just do the door start to finish, and then it will start on the bunny and I will finish the bunny, and I'll be done with both of them. So I am not going to choose to color sort these even though they are in the same hoop. So now that I have them placed so that they will fit in my 5x7 hoop with plenty of space, I just need to come up to File, Save Stitch File As, and name my design. I am going to put it into my Combined Files folder. I will add it to my USB so I can take to my machine. This is the first step that I will complete before starting on the mushroom home. So let's go get these two stitched out. I have my wash away stabilizer in my 5x7 hoop, and I do the same as I do with my muslin or my no-show mesh. I had a strip cut from the last time I used the wash away stabilizer. I have that hanging off the edge so that when I'm done with my bunny, I will be able to save. It might only be, a couple of inches, but over time that adds up. So I have the balance of that hanging off the back. The only thing you need to be aware of with doing stabilizer the way I do, whether it's muslin or no-show mesh or wash away, if you have excess and haven't just cut the piece to fit the hoop, you need to make sure that this doesn't get folded underneath when you put it into your machine. So let's open the USB. I will go to the Combined Files folder, and I'm going to bring in our little bunny and door. I have the fabric and the flex form for the door, and then I also, from the embellishment packet, pulled the gray piece of felt that we'll use for the bunny. So I'm going to hit set, and the last hoop I used is my large hoop, so I need to go up to the settings and I need to change to my 5x7 and select OK. I think I'm going to go back and lower my speed since we're going to be doing this flex form or this shape form. It's a little bit thick, so I'm going to go down just a little bit in my speed. Now I'm ready to go. I don't need to move anything. I'm going to put my hoop in and select embroidery. I will go to the minus plus needle, and the first step we're going to do is the placement for the door. So let's get going. I have the placement line, and the next thing I need to do is put the shape form down. That's just this little square piece. Make sure you cover the lines. I am going to tape just to hold that down. And then I will run the tack down. Now I need to trim the excess shape form off. And I just wanted to note that the reason I chose the yellow thread was because that is the first thread that is actually going to show, and that will be the doorknob. And so I just chose to do that so I wouldn't have to change my thread after doing the tack down. So let me get this trimmed up. Now I chose to run the placement line for the fabric just to kind of show why I normally don't do that. You can see that it is barely outside of this shape, and our piece of fabric is so much larger. And so that's why I usually skip the placement lines for the fabric, because they are just so close and our fabric easily fits over the shape. So I need to go ahead and tack this down. After the doorknob is stitched and I have the fabric tacked down, I need to take the hoop off and flip it over. And I will take the second piece of fabric and I just need to place it over and cover up those stitches. I got a little bit of bird's nest, so I'm just going to cut some of that off. And I will just place it over, and I'm going to put it right over the other fabric. And you do, of course, need to tape because this will be flipped over and you don't want any of the corners to flip under and potentially mess up. So I will tape all 4 corners and then flip my hoop back around, making sure that my excess stabilizer did not get flipped under. And now I can continue on. Now I am going to trim the fabric around the door, but I am going to not trim anything between these 2 little lines. So from this line out to the edge, I will leave the fabric. I will only trim from underneath, around the door, and then out. And I will do the same thing for the back piece of fabric. So here is what the door looks like trimmed. Again, we don't trim between these little notches. This is going to be the hinge of the door that makes the door open and close. So that's the front, and then the same on the back. So let's continue. I will change to the same color bobbin. I wound a bobbin with the dark brown, and that's because the satin stitching, of course, is going to be seen because this is a little 3D door that will open and close, and so the front and the back ideally should be the same. So let's get this door finished. So I want to note that our door is finished for now, and not to worry about this light color thread. This will be stitched over when we're actually stitching it to the mushroom house. But here is our door finished. So let's continue on to our rabbit. I've stitched the placement for the bunny, and the first is for the flexi foam, and I just used the pink lemonade color so that one, I can see it, but mostly it's because this is the first color of thread that will be shown after we put the felt and the ears on, and so that again just saves time in having to change out thread. Now I have a piece of a smaller flexi foam from another project, and this is why I don't cut it to size, because I have leftover. So I'm going to go ahead and use this smaller piece and save the piece from the kit. Maybe I wanted to do another mushroom block that has that large mushroom cap, but this is why I don't cut it to size, so that I can use it for something else. So I am going to place this down, and I think it fits just right, and I will stitch this down. I did choose to do the placement line because if you look on the screen, you can see that this is quite large as far as the placement around. So I wanted to make sure that I put my fabric, my felt in the right place. So I did choose to do this, but it looks like right here my thread didn't quite catch. So I'm just going to trim that, but I know that I just need to go, past here. And so if it's something large like that, I will stitch the placement versus if it's a little tiny, just right around. So now I'm going to place the felt and get this first layer stitched down. With my felt, again, normally I don't cut these to size, but I need a front and a back for this bunny. And so if I fold this in half, you can see that I really am not going to have that much left over. So for this one, I will go ahead and just fold it and cut it in half. I'm not worried about saving, on half an inch of felt. So on this one, I will cut it. So let's get this placed and then stitched down. I am going to just keep the pink thread in because the next stitch is actually going to be a thread that we cut directly on the stitch line, and so you do need to have that visible. Doesn't have to be pink, it could be white, but you just don't want to match it so that it's hard to see when you're getting ready to cut this bunny out. So our last step on this little bunny is to flip it over like we did the door and place the other piece of felt on the back. It does call for a matching bobbin because, of course, this is a 3D element and you'll be able to see both sides. The color used for this final outline is the color called Flint. And this is a new color for me. I got because they recommended it for this project. And this is one of my favorite colors. It's kind of a beigey, champagne-y mauve color. I love it. I'm hoping to use it in some other things. I love it. But anyways, that's the color that I put a little bit of on my bobbin. And so let's finish this bunny out. So here the bunny is done and he's super cute. And this is why we needed a color we could see, because we actually cut on that outside pink stitching line or whatever color you chose to use. And so now we can go ahead and take this out. I will cut my stabilizer just right up to next to the ears so that that's, you know, 4 or 5 inches that I saved by not just cutting this to the sides of the hoop. Again, that's seems like very minimal, but that adds up over time. So let's finish up these elements so we can start our mushroom home. Now for the door, it says to cut the stabilizer about 1/8 of an inch away. You don't want to try to cut right next to that satin stitching. So we'll cut just a little tiny border, because of course we don't want to cut that stitching, and then take a wet Q-tip or, you know, piece of cloth and dissolve that stabilizer. You just don't want to cut those satin stitches. So I will get these cut out and we'll continue. So I'll finish cutting around just outside the store. And now I'll take some warm water and just dissolve that little bit of stabilizer. Now I will set that aside to dry, and I will cut this cute little bunny. And again, the directions say to cut right on the stitching that we did in one of the earlier steps. I'm going to try to go just to the inside